The morning sun filtered through the skylights of Elite Martial Arts Academy as Victoria Chen adjusted her black belt and surveyed the pristine training floor. At 34, she had built Harrison Industries into a billion-dollar empire while maintaining her dedication to Aikido, achieving the rare distinction of 8th Dan mastery. The dojo represented her sanctuary from boardroom battles, a place where success was measured in discipline and technique rather than profit margins. Today's advanced seminar had drawn martial artists from across the region, all eager to train with someone of Victoria's caliber. She wore the traditional white jai with quiet confidence, her blonde hair pulled back in a precise bun that wouldn't interfere with movement. Around her, students in various colored belts warmed up under the watchful eyes of assistant instructors. Near the back of the dojo, Victoria noticed a man who clearly didn't belong with the advanced practitioners. Jake Sullivan wore a worn green training outfit and moved with the careful attention of someone still learning fundamental techniques. His longer hair and weathered hands suggested he worked with them for a living, and his presence seemed somewhat out of place among the more polished students. What caught Victoria's attention most was the little boy sitting cross-legged on the sideline, perhaps 4 years old, clutching a small toy while watching the adults with wide-eyed fascination. "Daddy, are you going to fight the lady?" the child asked in a voice that carried across the quiet dojo. Jake glanced toward Victoria with an apologetic smile. "We're going to practice together, Tommy. It's called sparring, and it helps us learn." Victoria approached them during the warm-up break, curious about this unusual father-son pair in her advanced seminar. "I don't think we've met. I'm Victoria Chen, Jake Sullivan. This is my son, Tommy. I hope it's okay that he's here. My regular sitter canceled, and I've been looking forward to this seminar for months." Victoria studied Jake's earnest expression and noted the respect in his voice. "What's your experience level, Mr. Sullivan?" 2 years of training, 3 times a week when I can manage it. I know I'm not at the same level as most people here, but I was hoping to learn from watching and maybe participating in basic exercises. "What draws you to Aikido?" Jake's expression grew thoughtful as he glanced at Tommy. "I'm raising my son alone, and I wanted to learn something that emphasizes control and protecting others rather than just fighting. Aikido seems to be about redirecting aggression rather than meeting it with more violence." Victoria found herself intrigued by his philosophical approach. Most students focused on physical techniques rather than the deeper principles underlying the art. "Would you be interested in some one-on-one instruction? I could use a training partner for demonstrating basic principles to the group." Jake looked surprised by the offer. "Ms. Chen, I appreciate that, but I'm probably not skilled enough to provide useful practice for someone at your level." Victoria smiled, noting his humility. "Actually, working with students at different levels helps me refine my understanding of fundamental techniques. Sometimes the most advanced practitioners learn the most from teaching basics." As the seminar resumed, Victoria found herself genuinely enjoying the opportunity to work with Jake. His movements were deliberate rather than fluid, but he showed excellent body awareness and absorbed corrections quickly. More importantly, he demonstrated the mental discipline that separated martial arts from mere physical exercise. "The key to this technique," Victoria explained as she guided Jake through a basic throw, "is using your opponent's energy rather than fighting against it. Like redirecting a river instead of trying to dam it?" "Exactly. You understand the principle better than students who've been training for years." Tommy watched from the sideline with rapt attention, occasionally clapping when his father successfully completed a technique. His presence added an element of joy to the usually serious training environment. During a water break, Victoria found herself in conversation with Jake about his background. He worked as a carpenter and had been raising Tommy alone since his wife died in a car accident 2 years earlier. "Tommy's the reason I started training," Jake explained. "I realized I needed to be the kind of man he could look up to, someone who could protect him but also show him that strength doesn't have to mean aggression." Victoria felt touched by his dedication to both physical and moral development. That's the true spirit of Aikido. Too many people focus on the combat applications without understanding the philosophical foundation. "Can I ask you something, Ms. Chen? How did you reach such a high level while running a business? I can barely manage work and parenting, let alone pursue advanced training." "It's about integration rather than balance. My training informs my business decisions, and my business challenges help me understand Aikido principles in new ways. As the seminar concluded, Victoria made an impulsive decision that surprised everyone present, including herself. "Jake, would you be interested in a sparring session? Nothing too advanced, just an opportunity to apply what we've worked on today." Jake looked uncertain. "I'm honored by the invitation, but I'm not sure I'm ready to spar with someone of your expertise." Victoria's eyes sparkled with amusement at his caution. "I promise to adjust to your level. Besides, you seem like someone who learns better through application than theory." Jake grinned, his nervousness giving way to determination. "In that case, I accept. But only if you promise not to cry when I accidentally succeed with one of those throws you taught me." The comment drew laughter from the watching students, and Victoria found herself genuinely amused by his confidence. "I think I can handle that risk." What followed was less a formal sparring session than an extended teaching demonstration. Victoria guided Jake through various techniques, allowing him to experience both success and gentle correction. Her movements were controlled and precise, never using more force than necessary to make her points clear. "Very good," she said as Jake successfully redirected one of her attacks. "You're beginning to understand that Aikido is about timing and positioning rather than strength." Tommy cheered from the sideline when his father completed each technique, his excitement infectious enough to make even the most serious students smile. As the session ended, Victoria realized she had enjoyed this interaction more than most of her high-level training partnerships. Jake's fresh perspective and genuine enthusiasm reminded her why she had fallen in love with Aikido in the first place. "Jake, I want to make you an offer," Victoria said as they bowed to each other in the traditional closing ceremony. "What kind of offer?" "I'd like to sponsor your continued training here. Full access to classes, private instruction when needed, and childcare for Tommy during sessions." Jake looked stunned. "Ms. Chen, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't accept something like that. What would you want in return?" Victoria considered her answer carefully. "Honesty? I want training partners who remind me that martial arts are about personal growth and protecting others, not just technical perfection. You and Tommy have brought something to this dojo that I didn't realize we were missing." "What's that?" "Joy, purpose beyond achievement. A reminder that the best techniques mean nothing without the right spirit behind them." 6 months later, Jake had progressed to intermediate level and become one of Victoria's most dedicated training partners. Tommy had become the dojo's unofficial mascot, and his presence had transformed the atmosphere from serious to celebratory. "Victoria," Jake said after a particularly good training session, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "That first day when you offered to spar with me, were you just being kind to the obviously out-of-place single father?" Victoria smiled, remembering her initial impression of this humble carpenter who had somehow captured her interest. "I was curious about someone who understood Aikido principles better than people who'd been training for years. The fact that you're a devoted father just made you more interesting. And now I think Tommy and I are lucky to have found someone who shows us every day that true strength comes from protecting and nurturing others." Jake realized that what had begun as a desperate attempt to find childcare during training had evolved into the most meaningful relationship of his adult life. Victoria had seen past his inexperience to recognize his potential, while he had reminded her that excellence without compassion was merely empty achievement. If this story of finding connection through shared values and mutual respect touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring tales that remind us how the most profound relationships often develop when we recognize each other's true character rather than surface accomplishments. Your support helps us continue sharing stories about the power of authentic human connection.